This year, 2022, is the 160th anniversary of the formation of our department. On the 2nd of April 1862, the Department of Public Works and Lands was formed as the 4th department of the young colony of Queensland. We were formed to build the police stations, the schools, the courthouses, the other public buildings that a growing colony needed. We've got a beautiful old book of government buildings of Queensland. Leah, is there anything that stands out for you when you think about our record over time?
Look, it would have to be Charles Tiffin, the first colonial government architect, who started the role when he was only 26.
We're looking here at a picture of Parliament House, which was erected in the 1860s at a cost of £80,000.
The two wings here on either side were constructed of sandstone, which was actually sourced from Goodna. The buildings were of French Revival style through the Renaissance period, which was actually really interesting for Queensland to bring that style into fruition. The Energy colleagues would be very interested to know that this was the first electrified Parliament House in Australia.
And there's perhaps no more challenging time for our state than the Second World War between 1939 and 1945. And our staff were pivoted to the war effort, and particularly in Townsville. Now I have here in front of me, Leah, what the archives calls their invasion map, which apparently may have been a Japanese invasion map of Queensland. And so many of our staff were forward deployed up to Townsville. They helped to build the Garbutt Air Force Base, major depots at Breddon and other places. We've got here a map for schools of air raid trenches. That was produced here by the Chief Architect, your predecessor of the State Public Works Department.
Once all the funds had been channelled to the war effort, there was almost 6 years of no new building works being done. So post that, when everyone came back from the war, there was a really large building boom, and a lot of that was to create new maternity wings for the hospitals, because we know post-war there was also a baby boom.
Baby boom, indeed. The Ipswich Maternity Hospital is a really interesting example of how state architectural design kept up with the time. So it's a really great Art Deco design, sort of, you know, it's early modernist. So not only was their architecture practical, but I think it was also stylish.
Absolutely, just form follows function.
Indeed.
Fabulous.
Indeed.
There's been quite a shift actually. The Queensland climate's definitely influenced the design of schools, as has the changing structure of the education system. And the architecture and the buildings have continually evolved to manage that as well. Designs before the 1970s used to have a whole wall of light to the southern aspect, so right-handed students got natural light for their writing assignments, which is really fascinating. By the 70s, the emphasis was more on group learning, so movable lightweight timber chairs and tables so they could facilitate group discussions.
There's been a lot of change over time, hasn't there?
There really has with the schooling system. So I guess recalling back to 2007 and 2015 when the Queensland Government introduced the preparatory year of schooling, and then again when Year 7 moved to high school, they were a huge program of works undertaken by Public Works Department, probably some of the biggest in its history.
We're here in the model room of the State Archives with a couple of models of interesting buildings. Now Leah, there's a period of design in the 1970s which must be interesting to you as an architect.
The 1970s really started to prominently feature in Queensland the brutalist architecture style, which was still rather polarising as its defined order and rigidity wasn't always favoured by everybody. Two architects in particular I think helped shape what would become some of the state's most significant buildings. So Robin Gibson won a competition in 1973 for the Queensland Art Gallery design. By 1974 his brief had been extended to the full cultural precinct for other buildings guided by the state. The relatively unchanged cultural precinct today consists of the three main buildings, the Queensland Art Gallery, the Queensland Museum and the Queensland Performing Arts Centre, which we know is undergoing an extension with the new performing arts venue done by Major Projects.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, Leah, that our work on the new performing arts venue shows how our department is playing a role in the reimagining of public architecture to suit contemporary needs. Let's have another look at another brutalist building, the State Works Centre. So Leah, we're standing in front of a concept model for the State Works Centre, which was the headquarters of our department until only a few years ago. Again, a very interesting building.
The American architect Walter Nett, who has also favoured the brutalist architecture style, he liked the field theory logic, which was basically playing on geometric elements, as you can see here with the cores, and the long linear elements of the veranda pieces. And he also took parapet reference heights off the heritage contextual buildings, specifically Parliament House, to pay homage to and respect to the heritage buildings of the area.
Now, many of our staff have happy memories of the State Works Centre, and particularly, can I say, the barbecue area on the top story here. But certainly the building was not without controversy. The Bellevue Hotel, an historic old Queensland hotel which was on the corner over here, was demolished to make way for the centre, and I think the state probably lost something when that happened. So it really, I suppose, makes us remember the value of heritage and the need to sort of interpret it. So Leah, we're here at the State Archives in an amazing building that's been built over the last 20 years by our department. And when you think about the growth of sustainability and energy efficiency in buildings, the world is changing. And as we think about the work that our department will do for the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games, that sustainability issue is going to be at the forefront. And also the work that EPW does in responding to disasters. We help to repair schools and other buildings that are affected by floods. You know, there's a lot of challenges as we go forward.
Yeah, there certainly is a lot of complex issues that we're dealing with, but I honestly think we are up for it. And I think this is a time to sometimes pivot and actually really think about how we do things in the future. And resilience and sustainability will be a key part of that.
So today we've looked a lot at the history of the Department of Public Works over the last 160 years. We do have a proud heritage. We've contributed a lot to this state. But as we go forward, we've got an incredibly important role to play in Queensland's future, in showcasing our state to the world for the Olympics, in helping us to prepare for a net zero emissions world, and in making sure that Queenslanders get the very best buildings that help them to live their lives. So Leah, thanks very much for coming down this walk along history, and thanks to the State Archives for their support.